Hello, everybody, and welcome to this How to Move to New Zealand webinar. My name is Scott Matheson, and I'm coming to you from Auckland, New Zealand. And with me, I have Hamneet Jaggi, also in Auckland, New Zealand, but originally from India.
India.
So I will be taking you through with Hamneet on the topic of how to move to New Zealand, especially after COVID-19. So I'm welcoming you from India, but also I can see that there's people from all over the world here, Indians from the UK, USA, Singapore. So fantastic to have you. And hopefully today will give you enough knowledge to be able to take the next step to migrate to New Zealand. You may not know this, but 5% of the New Zealand population identify themselves as from Indian descent. So for many generations, we have grown up with Indian people, and we are hoping to encourage more Indians to come to New Zealand over the coming years. So before I go forward, I'd just like to introduce you to Hamneet. Hamneet, can you please say hello to everybody?
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Hello, everyone. Namaste, Sat Shri Akal, and Adab. My name is Hamneet, and I'm originally from India. I came to New Zealand in 2012 as a student. I came here as a migrant. I've shared my own piece of experience all through these years, and now I call this country my home. It's been 9 years of living in New Zealand. It's been an amazing country to live in, and that's why I want all my fellow Indians who are interested to come to New Zealand or migrate to New Zealand. You need the right guidance, you need the right pathway, and that's why we are here today.
Fantastic. So today we will just be covering off what the immigration policy is right now, what the impact is of COVID, the type of visas that you can get, and what are the next steps. Okay, so just a little bit about working in. We have been helping people move to New Zealand now for over 20 years. We process about 2,000 to 3,000 visas per year, and we work with employers throughout the country to help people find jobs. So what you'll find about the New Zealand immigration system is that you need a job to get a visa and you need a visa to get a job. So we will cover that soon. But first things first, maybe we can just cover off what the situation is now, because with COVID-19 sweeping the world, Hamneet, what's happening in New Zealand? What is the situation with immigration? Can you tell us about the borders and what's the current situation?
Well, thank you, Scott. As the world knows that New Zealand has done amazingly well, thanks to our Prime Minister, and we have been doing so great respect to the other countries, and I think we continue to do the same. And that's why this has attracted a lot of migrants to actually think about migrating to New Zealand, considering it's a safe environment, good environment, healthy environment for their kids and family to stay for a longer period. Even though the borders are still closed, even though there are restrictions, but since last year, we as a team of our brilliant advisors have managed to bring in a lot of people under different categories of border exemptions. There are certain skills that New Zealand needs. There are certain skills that people can bring into New Zealand. Through this, we can actually apply for different categories of visas under border exemptions. Either it's a health category or other critical category or partners of dependence here in New Zealand. There are all sorts of categories which we can discuss. Obviously, people interested in, they can flick us a message, book a time with us as a free consultation. We can definitely go through in details, but there is a pathway. Immigration has given people an opportunity to come into New Zealand even if the borders are closed.
That's right. And there are a lot of people on this webinar who won't meet the border exemption policy, though. So whilst we are getting some people through the border, mostly what we're here today to talk to you about is about getting prepared so that when the borders do open, you are ready. Because New Zealand has a skills shortage. So what we're looking for is skilled people who are wanting to move to New Zealand and who can apply for jobs now and get the process moving. So Hamneet, can you briefly describe how somebody here can gain permanent residency in New Zealand? How do they get that permanent? How do they get the permanent residence?
Yes. So for being a resident in New Zealand, essentially the employment plays a very vital role. So people who have got a certain skills and have got employment in New Zealand, it's been an easier pathway to gain residence. There are different categories as well in for the residence application, but I think the essential part is to gain employment. Now, that's where we come in the picture, where we help candidates to actually sort out the employment part, not by gaining the employment. We have got the other recruitment partners as well who can help in gaining the employment depending on your skills, but also if that employment or the skill will actually help you to the residence pathway or not. We will help you in assessing those skills. We can help you with going through that pathway from temporary work visa to resident visa. So temporary work visa is kind of a, it's a shorter way to come to New Zealand. It is less of duration, it's more quicker than to directly coming on a residence visa. But once you're here, you're settled in New Zealand, you definitely have a pathway for further residence in New Zealand.
Okay, so what you're saying is in order to gain residency, you need a job offer.
Yes.
A job offer will give you a temporary work visa.
That's right.
Yep. Once you have come to New Zealand on your temporary work visa, then you can upgrade and apply for residency, providing you meet all the criteria.
All the other criteria, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And so for people who are on this webinar, how do they know that eventually they can meet the criteria? Because if I'm sitting in India and I'm thinking I want to migrate to New Zealand, I want to know I'm going to get permanent residence. How do we help on this situation?
We have been helping all the migrants all across the world, considering that they might be eligible, and we are doing the eligibility assessment pathway, which is kind of a service that we provide. And in that, people just provide us all the details, what they are doing, a detailed resume, everything, and we assess and do one-on-one meeting with them and give them a proper detailed report of how they will be eligible for that residence pathway to New Zealand. It's something that gives you an idea and prepares you for the future, that what you can do, even if you take the advantage of this time, even if you're not in New Zealand, even if you're in India or any part of the world, you can take this time and opportunity to actually collate all the information, or might be to upgrade one of the skill, which is a skill shortage here in New Zealand, but might be a pathway for you to residence. So we tell our clients to definitely go through us with the eligibility assessment pathway so that we can guide you and prepare you for the future.
Okay, so the first part of that assessment is a short assessment, and that's free.
Yes, it's free consultation.
It's free. Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of like an insurance policy, is it? Because it tells you right up front, yes, you can get residency.
That's right.
Or no, you can't.
Yeah, we obviously value the time and money invested in all this pathway, and obviously we value how much hard-earned money it is. So we value that, and that's why we don't want people and have a clear idea on whether it's a go or not. If it's a go, then I will let them know that definitely we can help you with that. If it's a no, then also I will tell you what would be that one thing that they need to prepare, and they can contact us later once they have done that. So in that free consultation, I try and guide people if this is a green signal or not.
Look, if people are spending money, it's always a concern. Okay, so and they're like, well, I can see this person on a webinar, but who are they? So Hamneet, you're a licensed immigration advisor.
Yeah.
This is really important.
Yes.
And we have a lot of licensed immigration advisors at Working In. So can you briefly explain, one, what is a licensed immigration advisor? Why you should use a licensed immigration advisor? And three, what protection do people have when using a licensed immigration advisor?
That's a very good question, actually. A couple of weeks ago, I was contacted by an Indian family from India. And in India, how it is very easier term and easier to connect the agent, that we have got an agent here. Now, people who are listening to this webinar, I'd make this very clear that we are not the agents. We are the legal advisors. So there is a very big difference between the agents in India and the legal advisors here. We go through a pathway every year, Every year we have to renew our license. We go through a formal qualification here in New Zealand to gain this license. So obviously that's how we are different from the agents back in India and versus licensed advisor in New Zealand. We at Working In, we have got more than 10 advisors and more coming on board with us. And with all across all senior level experience, every year when I say we are renewing our license, that means we are submitting certain applications to our board of IAA to get through this licensing process, which makes us unique from the other agents, which makes that we have got the legalized knowledge. We have got all the information that you need, even if it is publicly available. But because by a code of conduct, we have to be legally abide by it by sending the immigration advice in a legal format. So that's what makes us different from the other agents in India.
Yeah, thank you. And look, when you are doing your exams and renewing your license,
Yes.
I just want to make it clear to everybody that the governing body is actually the government. So MB, which is the Ministry of Business Innovation, is part of the government.
Yeah.
And Hamneet has to apply to the IAA, which is the Immigration Advisors Authority, which is run by the Ministry of Business, to renew her license every year.
Every year, so, yeah.
And of course, if you've got any bad marks on your record or any prospects of taking money off people, then you cannot get your license renewed. No. So it's probably the biggest message that we have today. If you want to come to New Zealand and use a local agent, that's fine, but there is a risk. If you see this as a really important part of your life and you want it done properly, then even if you don't use us, I say use a licensed immigration advisor, because that gives you protection. And Hamneet, I think it's also worth discussing the money and the fund and how the client fund works to protect the workers, to protect migrants.
Yes. So here at Working In, how we process clients' money and how we protect the client's funds here is that once you sign the contract of services, which is kind of a legal binding for us as an advisor to give you legal immigration advice, the money that you have transferred, it goes to the client fund, which is protected and which can only be released once the work has been done. It cannot be released halfway or on sign up. It is only released once the work is done, once we have known that, you know, this is what we have done as per the contract of services, and that's when we release the funds. So till that time, your money is protected. You can whatever your experience would be, you can actually follow that with the lead.
Fantastic. So let's just talking a little bit about New Zealand and Indian people that are already here in New Zealand. Typically, what roles, what sort of jobs do you see Indian people in? Does it matter? You know, especially for new migrants who are coming here for the first time.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, with India being such a big country, we have got vast skills. You name it, we have it. So I think a big boom that I have seen is in the IT sector. A lot of people are actually coming from India, working for big companies like Datacom, Deloitte, even the ANZ, all the IT are Indians. So I would suggest that anyone who is actually working in the industry for certain amount of experience and have got specific skills, like the other day I was reading one article that cybersecurity is a big boom now. And actually in New Zealand, there is a shortage of the skills. So and in India, there are masters. There are people who has masters in cybersecurity. So yes, contact us now and we can guide you through this process. Other than that, IT sector, health sector is a big boom. There are a lot of registered nurses that you will find in India. A lot of people from health sector, physiotherapists, surgeons who are actually qualified and registered and can come to New Zealand as a pathway. And obviously diesel mechanics, technicians, they would have experience. These are the trade workers. But the only thing that would like I would believe is the formal qualification. But that brings the pathway to come on a student visa here if they've got the skills. So there are different sectors in India to market on.
Okay. So Hamneet, for you, you've been here for almost 10 years.
Yes.
And what is life like for you? I mean, can you tell people, because there's people from all over the world on this webinar,
Absolutely.
what's the lifestyle like in New Zealand? Is it true? Is it as good as, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a New Zealander, okay, so I am biased. You who's come from India, what is it like, truly?
I absolutely love to tell the story. I came to New Zealand, as said, in 2012 as a student. So it was kind of my parents' decision to send me here to New Zealand, and I think they took one of the best decision of my life. And since then, I have climbed the ladder from working as an office assistant to an assistant to an advisor, and then becoming an ally, and then becoming a senior advisor. So professionally, I think New Zealand has given me a lot of doors and opportunities to knock on, which I could never thank. I have, like, people have got a rough journey and people have got a smooth journey, but it's because the New Zealand has given us the opportunity to do that. And in terms of lifestyle, I absolutely love. That's why I've not gone to New Zealand and to India for in the last 3 years. Not because of COVID, but also my frequency to India is a little less because I absolutely love living here in New Zealand. It's safe, it's healthy. I've got my extended family here as well. People listening to me, we can actually. It's not difficult to bring even your family or your cousins because I know India people live in a close knit family. Um, I have got my family here, so can you do. So it's not difficult, but it's a process to follow with the right guidance and on a right path.
Absolutely. Look, that's really nice to hear about that. I would say that for people who don't know, New Zealand is about the size of the United Kingdom, about the size of Japan, about the size of smaller than California, but only has 5 million people. So it just means that from a professional perspective, you are competing with less people whenever you're going for a job. The second thing is that similar to Ireland, New Zealanders like to travel. So we are a small nation, but New Zealanders are all over the world, mainly in the UK, Australia, but also Asia and the USA. And what means is that New Zealand always has a shortage of skilled people, never enough skilled people. So we have always had an active migration program encouraging skilled people into New Zealand to help build the economy. Now, what has happened because of COVID is that a lot of people have gone home back to their countries of origin, and the skills shortage is worse than ever. So unemployment rate is lower than it was before COVID,
Yeah.
and the job boards have more jobs on them than ever before. So I think the message for today is there's opportunities now for moving to New Zealand like there has never been.
Yeah.
That are job opportunities which are really important when applying for the visa that are at their all-time high, and that soon as the borders open, there will be a rush. There will be a huge amount of people wanting to move to New Zealand because the profile of New Zealand has increased, right? Because of
That's right.
Ardern, because of the way that we are COVID free, and there's a good reputation.
Yeah.
So, and it is also number one in the world on the Peace Index. So this is very attractive in a world that is becoming increasingly violent.
Yeah.
So our message to you today is that if you are serious about immigrating wherever you are in the world, start now, because there's going to be a lot of people wanting to come here. So the sooner you are prepared, the better. Now, we have a free form that you can fill in, and we will just tell you straight away. Fill in the free form. We'll post that on this webinar. You click on the link, fill in the details, and we will tell you straight away whether we think that you have a pathway to residency, and we'll arrange a consultation.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you mentioned before, Hamneet, and being a student, I think it's really important. A lot of Indians have come to New Zealand via the student pathway. That's going to be a lot more difficult, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so maybe you just want to explain that a little bit, because in immigration, windows open and windows close, and a window that's been open for quite a long time has closed.
Yes.
And people should understand that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Because I've come here as a student, so I understand the time and money involved in this whole process, including you have to show tuition fee, you have to invest in living expenses, etc., etc. So people who are actually qualified in India, who've done bachelor's or master's, can actually come through a pathway of directly through an employment or a temporary work visa, rather than coming here on a student visa. Obviously, student visa is one of the pathway to come here, but it's a longer process. It's from going to student visa, then to temporary visa, and then on a residence visa. But if you are qualified enough, if you've got skills, and there are skill shortage in New Zealand, I think it's better to give it a chance to go on a employment pathway rather than a student pathway. Applying for a temporary work visa if you have secured an employment, and then going on a residence pathway. So I personally believe that there are people in India who are super qualified, super skilled, who have not thought about that this could be one of the pathway to come to New Zealand. Because in India, it's very easy to click a market on, okay, here's the student pathway. But there is another pathway as well, which you want to have a think about, and you want to give more instinct about it. That this could be one of the process to follow, and you can come to New Zealand sooner than later.
Okay, so that's interesting. So I think, look, we don't want to have a long webinar here. We've given you enough information. I think the number one thing is that, New Zealand needs skilled people. If you have skills, you should inquire with us and find out whether your skill is in demand. But the main thing really is to fill out the free assessment, and Hamneet's team, Tanvi, will look at that, and then they'll come back to you. Well, they'll send you some information, more information about New Zealand, and from there we can actually say, hey, do you want to go to the next step, which is a full assessment, and that is the assessment that will allow you to make a decision on whether you migrate or not.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. The second eligibility assessment report, which is kind of a very detailed report, it's kind of like a guideline for you to how you can migrate to New Zealand. We note every step. We note everything in that report. You would have a full guidance in that report that how you want to migrate with you and your immediate family to New Zealand.
Okay. All right. So what's your final message then, Hamneet, to all the people out there that are thinking that they might want to come to this beautiful country?
I would absolutely encourage all the viewers out there who have just thought about just even a little bit, just give it a chance, give it a go, and have a chat with me. It's free of cost, doesn't harm, and I will guide you through the process. And why I'm in this profession, because I absolutely love helping people. That's why I've stayed in this profession in the last 9 years. So yeah, definitely, if you've given a thought, even for a second, contact us.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's what have you got to lose, right?
Yes, exactly.
What have you got to lose? So look, I think we're going to finish this now. As I said, a very brief webinar, but just enough information to allow you to go to the next step. So please fill in the free assessment form, and we'll come back to you within 24 hours, and that's a promise. So thank you very much for your time. From everybody all over the world, good night, good evening, good morning, and we hope to see you again.
Yeah. See you, everyone.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.